Hello, this is our 14th discussion of No Art, No Life. I'm Jack Cole here with my very, very good friend David Duvall. How are you this week, David?
Great to see you, of course.
Honored.
And well, we should introduce ourselves a little. I mean, I'm a pianist. You're a pianist. Uh, you are a writer. I write. I can't call myself a writer.
Why would you say that you can't call yourself a
Oh,
writer?
I guess I can. I mean,
I mean, you're so prolific.
I'm prolific, but
I can think right off of the top of my head so many books: The Reflections from the Keyboard, The Art of the Piano, The Essential Canon of Classical Music, Evenings with Horowitz. And
yes. You know, when you say that, the Menuhin book,
the
things like
Menuhin
that.
book.
I guess I'm, just a little upset that I can't get my novel published or haven't tried really, but I have to get an agent. So if you're out there, contact me, please. And any editors that want to talk to me, nobody seems to answer anybody anymore. Have you noticed?
I have. Being on one's own and corresponding with anyone is a difficult task in terms of the business of writing.
Yeah. Communication, which is heralded as, one of the great things of our time, is absolutely nil when it comes to the individual trying very hard to find some information on a personal level, by let's just talk on the phone and see what we're going to do. I think that they've forgotten that you could do a great deal on the phone, that you don't need computers at all. And the sooner we get rid of them, by the way, the better chance we have for the future of mankind. I really cannot believe in these gadgets, in these horrifying machines, which in no time you must bow to it. You have no choice.
Well, plus, so much is lost in terms of a body of work of the epistolary art. Last week, after hearing you read to me, and again, speaking of you as a writer, yet another new essay that you're just now finishing, it makes many allusions to Byron. And I was so enchanted by just the few allusions you made, I went to the library and already had a volume of his letters, and it animated every single moment of my train ride here today. But then you made a statement in our discussion today when I made an allusion to the Byron letters, the idea of what has been lost to us from those who were never afraid to give us their honest selves. And you say that Byron's memoirs were burned?
Yes. Yes, it's one of the great tragedies of the Romantic era, that the most famous celebrity of his day, actually to a public that read poetry and voraciously, his Child Herald, in 1809, the first canto came out, and I mean, it had to go into republication within a day. I mean, it was a hit. You wouldn't think that poetry reading was so enormous, but it really was. And I guess that's why there were a lot of poets. Think of it. Keats, Shelley, and Byron were all in London at the same time. My goodness. Yeah, but what about such a thing as the censorship of I'm not sure if it was John Murray, who was the great publisher of Byron and his friend, who made that decision to burn what would have been a bestseller beyond belief. It must have been a scandalous autobiography. It really must have been, even for 1824.
I can imagine. And then that led me earlier today even to ask you, in your great knowledge of just the canon of the West, what else do you think we've lost, perhaps, because of either censorship, fear of the truth, or just the exigencies of existence where we've lost something?
Well, we've certainly lost a great deal when Schubert dies at 31.
I mean, there's material in manuscript that we think did not survive.
Oh, there is. Of course there is. In Schubert's, they were finding it in all parts of Vienna as late as 1870 and 80. If you had not known who Schubert was, you would read in the paper of another premiere, be it Rosamunde or the Ninth Symphony. That was an early one when Mendelssohn it was sent to Mendelssohn when Schumann was in Vienna, and he went to the brother, and he sees a whole cupboard of manuscripts, and he takes out, this is the Ninth Symphony. What? Of course, these people read the score. They're high, you know. He sends it to Mendelssohn instantly because, and this is what I call this altruism of the artist, which today doesn't exist any longer. But here he is. He says, "Oh, this has got to be played. This is one of the greatest symphonies ever written." And he was quite right. He was a great critic, Schumann. And he sends it to Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn, one of the greatest musical minds that ever could be, ranking with, you know, the highest. And he reads it and he says, "My God." And then very soon after is the world premiere in something like 1843 or so. No, about 1838, when Schumann was trying to get his magazine published also in Vienna. So it's that early, only probably 10 years after Schubert's death, and that was the first great performance of a posthumous work that could have been lost forever if Schumann hadn't been digging around. Isn't that a story?
Well, it is. And do we attribute that to the psychology of the composer himself, with the idea that only the next work to be written was the most important thing to him, rather than, do we feel that he was free of being haunted by the need for a legacy, that he would store his work?
No. They didn't have that immortality machine going. It started, and people were, you know, interested in personalities and reading about them, but nothing like today. Every, you know, minor league baseball player has an autobiography.
Yes.
It's terrible. I don't know why they want everyone to know. It's like Facebook. Why would everyone want to know all of these terrible things that people invent, you know, to put you down or something?
Right.
It's a true accident ready to happen every minute.
So you think there's still perhaps a body of work of Schubert that was lost because of that process, or remains to be found?
Not much more. I would say there was a lot of things thrown out of Bach, cantatas that were burned and used in butcher shops in Leipzig or whatever. They didn't care about, you know, preservation as we do. We don't have Bach published in toto until the mid-19th century. But going back to this favorite symphony of mine, so important to work the Ninth Symphony. What if that was lost? I don't know what to say. Of course, the Eighth Symphony could have been lost too, because the manuscript was given to Hüttenbrenner, a supposed close friend of Schubert, and he kept it for himself and not until 1865 was the most popular symphony, except for the Beethoven Fifth, ever performed. And Hüttenbrenner didn't allow it to go unless one of his works was on the program of the Vienna Philharmonic.
Did he get his way?
Yeah.
And so
it wasn't heard until 1865 or so.
Wow. And this man's name was Hüttenbrenner.
Yes, Anselm Hüttenbrenner, who called Schubert. If you have a friend like this, I would say get rid of him. He called Schubert a little lump of fat.
Now, I'm just trying to play the role of super objective poser of questions. Have you looked through any of the works of Hüttenbrenner?
No, of course not.
No?
No.
I mean, do we know if any of Hüttenbrenner's...
I don't know if any is published.
Is any published? Nothing has survived?
No.
Right.
That's quite a different story of the hundreds and hundreds of composers that just haven't survived at all.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a fascinating concept, of course, but I'm sure that a great deal of Liszt was either thrown away by him, or who knows? I don't know. But by the end of the century, everything was was watched over carefully by the composers because they had a new copyright law which made Brahms a fairly rich man, indeed a rich man. He had an estate of $100,000, which was a lot of money in 1897 when he died. So Brahms took a good, again, the altruism. Brahms, knowing that his publisher, I think Simrock at that time, loved his Hungarian dances and he made a lot of money from them. He said, why don't you do the Slavonic dances? And that's how it comes about that everyone needs money, I'm afraid. And he wrote all of the Slavonic dances and 3 rhapsodies, Slavonic rhapsodies. So what was lost? Probably most of the Renaissance music. I don't think we know anything of Henry VIII, who composed quite a bit.
Okay, I've heard that.
Yeah. He had an instrument collection that was fantastic. By the end of the century, and of course Brahms is an example of him, as Toby said, he burned enough to make up another great composer.
You're talking about Brahms?
Yeah.
Yes, and didn't he also destroy many personal articles, meaning letters, personal effects that cover the trail?
Jack Schubert and Brahms really guarded their biographical territory, and Brahms is so careful. He made an appointment to throw his letters to Clara Schumann and hers to him in the river, in their respective rivers. I guess the Danube and in Frankfurt. I don't know the river there, but they did it.
Okay.
Wow, would we like to know what's in those letters?
That is remarkable. Do you think, as an artist, pianist, writer yourself, that one should hesitate at the end of life to execute such self-censorship? Are we able to know what we should destroy?
Wonderful question, as you always ask. It's hard to know because every artist is different. There's no reason to have, I don't know, and hardly am a scholar of Wordsworth, let's say, but when you read about him in any source, it always says, well, by the time he got to be poet laureate of England, or in his later years, the poetry is just conventional. Same with Tennyson often. And it led to everyone believing, because Byron and Shelley and Keats died at 25, 29, and 36, Byron, that you had to be very young to write the heated romantic poetry that was in the great nature poetry of Wordsworth, the Ode to Immortality and the incredible Prelude and the Ballade, you know, the ballad which he worked on with Coleridge. They could have perhaps been read more if they actually suppressed their late work and had it burned. But they didn't know. They didn't really necessarily know that it wasn't as good as the early stuff. That's what criticism has done to us. Maybe everyone's wrong. Maybe in this century they'll find out that the late work of Tennyson or many others, I mean so many others, we never would find out anything about Keats, the poor man dying 25. Think of it. My God. So Schubert. What about Mozart? I mean, the man was, you know, a flying machine when it came to the brain of composition. He must have thrown out so much. And of course, like a little story like McDowell, loving this little tune, Iroquois Indian tune, which became one of his woodland sketches, To a Wild Rose. What a nice title.
Was that saved from the wastebasket, I think?
Yes, it was saved by Mrs. And I'm sure this is quite right. Oh, many of these stories can be apocryphal.
Yes.
I mean, so much of our scholarship is just so wasted on why aren't they doing more creative work, some of these scholars, than than worrying about, if this date was right when the St. Matthew Passion was performed the second time,
Yes, because in the long
It's
run,
ridiculous.
in the long run, it's easier
Yeah.
to perform 12 hours a day of arduous scholarly work than to risk looking into the abyss.
Please, scholars, start just plain and simple. Get rid of this pedanticism that we have fallen into that has made it so hard for the artists to survive in the society. It's not just that we have no public.
Mhm. Also, the artful reader. You and I have talked about this problem. The choreography for the artful and dedicated reader is often tremendously obfuscated by the footnote or the endnote. I would particularly say the endnote. I'd rather have a wider, larger tome with all of that material in there, in the text, than to have to leap and play a dance. And
Yes, we were talking about the footnote,
Yes.
and I told you that Willard Beecher, the man that wrote the book we talked about,
Beyond Success and Failure?
Beyond Success and Failure. And one day I said to him, "Oh God, this 20th century has been horrible, horrible. Look at what has happened, and 2 world wars, and oh my God," I said, we've got to make sure that the Germans don't start another war.
Right.
Possibly today you can't say anything like that except right now, I hope. And Beecher said to me something so fabulous. I don't know, I'm sure I told you this
I
once.
think I know, but I'd like to hear it again.
But he said, "Oh no, the wars have been nothing compared to what the main German invention that has destroyed everything." Well, what is that? He said, "The Germans invented the footnote." Did I tell you that?
You have mentioned it, and you may have also made an allusion to that in Evenings with Horowitz.
Well, I don't remember that book at all, I must tell
Okay.
you. But someday, if I live long enough, I'll try to read it again
Okay.
because everyone remembers that book a little bit.
Yes.
I get a lot of little, innuendos here and there about it, including "How dare you leave Horowitz?" when
You had mentioned that. Yes.
But yeah, it's so interesting, this thing called scholarship. I mean, can you imagine Lord Byron annotating Pope's translation of the Odyssey or Iliad, whatever, which one he,
Right.
and every single, oh my goodness, it's dreadful. It makes everyone intimidated. I don't understand why they have to do this, do you? What
No.
did it happen? Did the academe make this happen?
Apparently so, because you have a new manuscript, a large work of nonfiction about the piano, and you feel that part of what may thwart its advancement is the idea that every single quotation has to be footnoted.
Not to mention the fact that I hate those things, and you never look at them.
No.
I mean, I could possibly, or one or two.
On rare occasions,
yeah,
if one
on
wants to.
rare occasions. I remember that I had to withhold the publication of the Essential Canon because they had to have, we have to make it, look like it's a scholarly work. And they had to have sources for every quotation. Now, I love quotations. They are the essence of Marianne Moore said, I have to tell the people about this quotation and I must have it seen again and read. Some of these quotations are certainly better than anything that you could yourself create. So you use them. If you've ever read anything, you see how important they are to an essayist, let's say. And I don't mean that you have to use them. I'm saying that they're there for you if you want. Just like I did the young Archimedes in this last essay I did on the progeny of the artists, major artists. But what was I pushed away too much. Where was I?
Well, we were talking about the influence on a reader of the visual impression of footnotes or endnotes. and the fact that we encounter this stumbling block.
They made me, with my own money, have some woman come here 3 or 2 times a week and look through all my books.
Oh.
I was a prisoner of this woman coming here all the time, let alone me paying her, to make them happy that they had every quote with the source, page, publication date. Now, I've asked people if they've ever looked at the source, which takes, a long time, 10, 12 pages. No one's ever said to me they ever looked at it. I looked at it 3 times myself.
Sometimes I will make those 2 separate acts. Do you ever find yourself reading bibliographies separately?
Yes, but
But I don't feel that the main body of the text should be obliged to submit the art of its order to sudden starts and stops.
Yes.
It would be as if when we watch a traditional film being projected, as if between each frame, we had to know everything that happened after they yelled cut. We need to have that illusion of motion. For example, as you know, I've steeped myself in reading about the war between the states for 20 or 30 years of my life. And as popular as the Shelby Foote 3-volume history of the Civil War is, I have to concede that it is grand and great, and it does not have the tremendously terrible importuning of footnotes or endnotes. It has this, it does not.
He couldn't get away with that now.
No, he could not. And it's this beautiful text that, in a sense, elevates our history into as much a history as a fable that tells the truth. And anytime I see a quotation mark, I know that it's been delivered with such care and elevation that it's relatively certain that it's a true citation. And then I feel that if I'm that inspired by what he has put in quotation marks, that it's my responsibility to hunt it down to a degree. I always don't feel that someone has to submit, because I think it's Napoleon said that history is what a fable agreed upon. So So we don't even know if the footnotes are really giving us yet more evidence that it comes from a fable.
No.
So I think we're talking about something important that ruins the art of reading from this constant motion of inserting a static moment in between the fluid notion of taking in the text.
And my sources
Yes.
are so varied that half of the books are hard to get. Am I going really thinking that when they see that source for this little one line, nothing, as long as they have it really in there, and who's going to find that book? I mean, this makes a burden for a good reader. They're saying, well,
Yes.
but it's in the text. Why do they have to have a source for it when you're not going to be able to find it anyway? You know, about several years ago, I told you that I gave up on a well-known university press because the contract had something like 12 pages of things I had to do for them in a academic sense. Well, I'm not going to do any of them. I cannot waste my time on such a thing. And I had to refuse the contract because I could not comply in the long run with all the junk that was asked of me. How dare they?
I understand that.
The author is supposed to be something to look up to in a specific area. So 12 pages, Jack. I mean, it makes me crazy just to talk about it.
You know, under the heading of the passionate exclamation, how dare they, let me backtrack for a moment to the people that wrote to you and said, how could you leave Horowitz? What I think makes the book so interesting, because I meditate its final, ultimate question a lot. And I feel it's the moment where you decide that you have to extricate yourself from this association. But then you say, and this is what makes me feel I have such use from the book, because I ask myself this question. You say that it became a moment of principle, but that normally you don't like men of principle, you prefer to be judged by men of heart. That is very near the apotheosis of the book. And I think that's a tremendously subtle question that we have to ask when we drop people. Whether or not it's an aggressive notion of principle, or it's something of the heart that's necessary. For example, I discussed to you a private matter where I felt I was obliged to push away someone who had returned. And yet, though I knew in principle I had to do it, I also felt remorse for the principled act of it. It seemed a bit heartless. And yet I knew if I gave an act of heart, it would simply draw this same problem back into my life. So that ambiguity, I think, is one of the great ambiguities of the book.
Yes, yes, I know what you're saying, and I know that in the book I give whatever reasons, and they were brewing in me a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what am I getting out of this?
Yes.
I'm entertaining him. That's great.
Well, see, that's another great thing that I was even meditating in my journal on the train ride in here. We can full well have relationships that are one way, where we feel that we are the principal person giving to the thing, and say we don't want or need reciprocation. But at the same time, we need reciprocation so that we know that we are heard as the giver of the one-way beneficence. So in a way, the one-way relationship still needs reciprocation.
Yes, you can't live on little signs and symbols, that
Yes.
you may be interpreting. That's
Right.
That's what a lot of people do, and they're really quite off in their estimations.
Yes. So I think that book is a great study in that kind of ambiguity of difficulty, what happens in those alliances.
I really thank you. You make me think, this book is better than it is.
No, it is as good as it appears to be. And it takes a subject, I mean, who am I in any way to say that Horowitz is not a grand subject? But it elevates it above the subject.
Yeah.
It becomes a subject above music and pianists. It becomes the notion of seeing the value of ostensibly what we would call great men. For example, I was rereading in the second volume of Walker's List that one of Liszt's great traits was to be able to separate the man from the artist and still espouse or be an exponent for someone's work, even when he was so mistreated by these people.
Amazing. How did he do that?
I don't know how he did that. So I think, again, even with Horowitz, is the moment where that line has to be really addressed, because I think maybe that question is never one to be fully answered. I think I mentioned weeks ago, I was talking about Deems Taylor's The Monster, about Wagner, where he ultimately says, well, now all those things don't matter. But maybe they do matter. Maybe we still need the great man to be a man. And
Well, look at Nietzsche said,
yeah,
sorry, Mr. Wagner, I love you. Your music meant so much to me. Not today does it mean the same, but I leave you now.
yes,
It's done, both Cosima and Richard. He was being enveloped in this mad materialist's art, which, as we say, is now, to me, just a tremendous symphonic pool of, very, very unsympathetic rhythms to me. I don't see he has any of Liszt's rhythmical. The word is not fortitude, of course. Rhythmical gifts to show in every piece a new kind of rhythmic unit. Wagner doesn't do that at all, especially with his so-called endless melody. No, I'm off of Wagner right now, and I want to be forgiven. I know that I certainly have in me the ability to feel this at certain times, but I don't feel he's what he was to the public. I don't, each generation has certain things that hit them, and this guy hit so many people.
yes.
Just like certain politicians could get away with. I don't know what their attraction is. And I certainly don't know how Wagner was considered the greatest composer of the 19th century after, Beethoven. Mahler said, after all, there is only Wagner and Beethoven.
What do you make of Mahler's worship of Wagner? Because Mahler seems...
Well, he stays away from writing operas, doesn't he?
He does.
No,
Out of veneration?
out of
For Wagner?
out of the knowledge that he wouldn't be able to come up to Die Meistersinger, which certainly, I mean, it's fantastic from the, but the overture's just a little too swollen for me. I mean, I get very critical with, I don't want to hear the Liebestod ever again, like La Vie en Rose, you know, the Piaf playing, singing.
Yes.
I don't want to hear them ever again. I said that to Menuhin once, and he, you know, he felt, you know, you get a little drowned in that.
Of the Liebestod.
Yeah. Oh, come on, come on. I can make the Liebestrom of Liszt is effective, or Liszt's transcription of the Liebestod is effective as a singer. Not me, but let's say the Horowitz recording of it is like fantastic. And
That meaning that recording from the last record he made?
that's an amazing erotic example of an old man who still is burning with sexual passion, at least through the music.
So we truly are talking about that recording that was marketed as the last recording.
And it was.
Yes.
That was at home.
Yes.
And Tom Frost was there doing it, I guess, and producing it. And I must say that is an extraordinary outburst of sexual energy that Horowitz had. And I always considered that this was a tremendously virile creature. He was.
Do you think some of what you feel, and especially because you had said that Liszt in a sense always has an edge in greater articulation, if even just in the rhythmic, that his transcription then elevates the Liebestod because it is free of the super effective legato that the orchestra will always impose? And you think that that's what causes you to feel that the...
You've just analyzed it beyond my thoughts. I never thought of such a thing, but I think you just hit it on the nose. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That legato suppresses...
Yes, and of course, what if the human voice is too screechy, too... Oh, there's so many people that have sung that so badly that you really don't want to... I mean, I would rather than hear Piaf always do a good job of La Vie en Rose.
Okay.
It was her that made that famous, right? I guess so.
I believe so, yes.
I think so. My knowledge of pop music is hardly venerated. But yes, I would say to all of you, get my books. I'm happy that I wrote them, but I would like very much to continue, get the things that in print that I have that I can't in this society seem to maneuver, and that is because of the fact that the editor will say, or the agent, well, I can't make any money out of Much Ado About the Piano.
Well, that's what so astounds me, you know, in life coming into your work. One presumes when one's not part of publishing or any part of that professional world, when one first starts to be a reader, that when someone reaches your level of attention, that is something that is set for you, that you will not any longer have to fret about the idea of distribution.
Yes.
And now to hear of the works that you still have in manuscript, and yet the world has changed to such a degree, I can't imagine. That seems to me more frustrating. I mean, frankly, I've told you that as a writer myself, I'm accustomed to anonymity. So that doesn't really
But you're of an earlier generation than I am, you see. And I grew up in a time where I could call any publisher, forget the agent, he never got me anything. And you always did it yourself in the long run.
Right.
And I could call up, you know, Doubleday's so-and-so editor and say, oh, I have an idea for this. Oh, let's go to lunch. They already knew that you had done, let's say, Reflections or something else, and they heard you on the radio and so forth, you know, and...
well, what I'm saying is I think that must be harder to bear.
It is.
Than the person who's never known that experience.
Yes, because you don't understand this barrier, which was once not there at all.
Yes.
I mean, they say, oh, things are different today. Well, just in the very important world of publishing, it is not even vaguely, you know, you don't have an acquiring editor, as we have said in some of these shows. I mean, you have, you know, a committee that chooses. Oh, that's as bad as the Chinese concerto composed by, you know, many
You mentioned
people.
that, and I must say, we've mentioned that in one of our conversations before. I'm ashamed to say, I don't know that piece.
I think it's called the Yellow River Concerto. Last
Okay.
time I couldn't remember it.
Okay.
But now, let's go to you. You've concentrated so much on, many of my aspects, and I know you, and I know that your interest is not only keen, but it's real, and makes me feel good, because there's nothing more important than being interested in someone's work and person. Tell me, because we've talked about, and I'm in the midst of reading it, and I'm not stuck, I just haven't continued, a book that you never stop talking about, and I want everyone to know. That's Moby Dick.
Well, I guess if I were to say anything about Moby Dick before anything else, that if one can have an experience in childhood, that, and I do not have children, but if I were,
Thank God.
the thing that I would say,
Who wants them? Forgive me.
well, I would say the temptation for me to have a child would simply be to recreate the gift that is to be read to.
Oh, tell us.
And that, I would say, is probably one of the most impressionable kinds of magic things that can happen. And that a child really doesn't need children's literature. He simply
Of
needs
course.
to be given the right things from the canon.
Right.
And then forever, Queequeg and Ishmael become these boon companions. So I would have to say first that I had the privilege of hearing it early enough that I never thought of it as scholarly or some kind of artifact that had to be grappled with from the canon. I was allowed to
That
live
you would
with
be
it.
reading it because the ninth grade teacher said so, or the 12th grade, or or you
Right.
take a course on Melville.
Yes.
Yeah, all those things are very, very little compared to what you heard from your own mother, I think, right?
It was my mother's voice that rendered Melville to me, and so that kind
All of it, huh?
all of it, and the many Victorian novels. So I would say that kind of influence. When we talk about the relative evils of having children, I would say the times when I feel ambivalent, as I just said, would be the idea of recreating that, because I would say that to me more, and I was a happy child in elementary school and school. It wasn't a torture to me, but I don't think anything matches the notion of being read to. So I just wanted to say that's the first thing that the invocation of Moby Dick sparks in my mind, that for some reason it's one of the most powerful skeleton keys I think that one can offer, especially to an American child, knowing that though we imagine that Melville thought he was amplifying the ambiguities of the star kicker from a King Lear, by God, I must say, I think he bests Shakespeare 1,000-fold over in Moby Dick. It's quite something. And I would say that a child who's open and listening in the wonders of twilight as they're being read to in bed would be given some of the greatest things that came out of the American literary Renaissance, meaning Thoreau and Emerson, and perhaps maybe some of the dark overtones of tale-telling that come out of a Hawthorne are all there in this wonderful brooding voyage of the Pequod. So I can't speak highly enough
I better
of it.
finish it. I mean, you stimulated me. Well, that's what criticism
Yeah.
is. If you can stimulate that person from your words and go to the major work to be considered, so many people never read the actual. They read a review of it, or they think that that's enough knowledge of it.
It's funny, in our conversation today, you brought a new idea to me. You were talking about how perhaps the paraphrases of Liszt's addressing Wagner's music, in a sense, maybe gives it more vitality, because we both discussed it removes the obfuscation of the legato and allows the articulation of the pianist, if we could say, in a black and white way, versus the oversaturation of the technicolor of the Wagner orchestra to hear the real textures. Same thing happens, I believe, in Moby Dick. If we look at Moby Dick perhaps being a narrative orchestration, it has a Wagnerian orchestration, a great, great legato that maybe a child will take to first before he comes into the intense staccato, the chiaroscuro, beautiful, direct articulation that we get in the Lisztian clearness then of an Emerson. Meaning that if we look at Moby Dick as a high burlesque of Emersonian thinking, that perhaps that's the analogy I would give, that a tremendous gateway into our perhaps greatest canonical figures, Emerson, Thoreau, can be grasped first in Moby Dick.
Well, you're telling us a great deal, and not only, must I get back to it because I was absolutely enthralled with it. However, I don't know what got in the way, and of course I read so many things, but I will get back to it and soon. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of it yesterday. Where in the hell is the book? That's a whole topic. Where in the hell is the book? I can't find it.
Yes, well, let me ask you,
crazy.
But, and at the same time, I think great readers don't feel subject to traditional collation or placement of books, and I don't think you do.
No. I don't know where any book is. I just look, oh, would I like to reread this? Or, or maybe I never read it. And I'm rather amazed at my taste because when I'm getting a book that I'm taking a chance. I've never heard about it, talked about it, whatever. And if I am wrong about the chance, I cannot stand it near me.
Interesting.
I throw it out.
When you say throw it out, you mean you put it aside, or you
No,
genuinely...
I will go, and I will, I can't go on. This is not good enough. This has told me nothing. I'm wasting my time. And there's a repugnance about it. And I get up, and I throw it in the wastebasket.
How would you advise someone that you suspect is a future great reader to distinguish that feeling from a lack of discipline?
It takes a long time. They have to really be serious readers. And when are we going to start making schools make you, demand you, stimulate you to read? If I'm not always looking at you, it's the window is
not at all.
killing my eye here. So
that's
with the light.
There's the brilliant sunlight of Manhattan's other buildings coming in to give people a setting of what we can both see out that window.
It's coming in?
Yes.
So, Jack, it is it's a great hardship to throw it out because you've spent, even if it was a secondhand, you spent some money on it. You had a little enthusiasm, and because a book is a great adventure. But I'm surprised that my taste is as good as it is because I'm amazed at how few books that I have to throw away. But I really do because I don't want them tainting even another book.
Tainting in the sense of abusing the time.
Having it near me is like, I don't want to know that a book is so sacred to me as like the great editor Maxwell Perkins said, something like, there can be nothing as important as a book.
Right.
And that's the truth.
Now, are there books from which you have withdrawn with that kind of sense of repugnance, only to come across them again and not remember why you felt that?
Yes, of course. When you're a big reader, you're going to always have what you just said. Yes, I mean you will, and I could have made mistakes or errors. I don't know, but certainly there's. Right now, I'm in the middle of the Red and Black, or the Black and Red by Stendhal.
Okay.
It's a very hard book, very difficult, but I will finish it because I know that it is very worthwhile in there.
A residue, I think, of childish discipline that I carry into reading, and I would love to know what you think is the deep psychology behind this. When I own 2 copies of the same book, I don't feel I've completed a complete reading unless I read it through in only 1 copy. What does that say about some strange hang-up I have? In other words, if I had 2 copies of a Dickens novel, and one I keep in my backpack for the train, and one I have at my bedside, and I decide to read through David Copperfield, I would feel, for some reason, I've betrayed my reading if I read them chapter by chapter, alternating between the 2 copies. Does that seem like a madman's preoccupation?
No, it's somewhere in your psyche, which is always complicated, and everyone has a personal relationship to reading,
Mm.
and a great reader where a book is so important that that's telling you, you know, I can't desecrate the Dickens. I need that one.
Mm.
One. That's what you're saying. The one.
The one copy, or that the experience has to be left to right within one finite space.
Yeah, you don't even want to see that the world has another copy in a way that you could even buy it or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's what, because you talked about the Bellini work last week that you happened upon, and I then mentioned that
The Bellini, not the composer, the painter.
the painter, I'm sorry.
Yes. The great Renaissance painter, yeah.
Right. And was that in, do I remember the name of the city properly? Is it?
Oh, in Murano.
Murano.
Yeah.
Now, and I had mentioned to you that that is something that is exclusive to the plastic arts, that we can come, especially if it's that work in situ, in the only place it was meant to be seen, and hence a copy will never be the intention of the realization of the artist. And you had the experience of, especially in a surprise, I think, coming across a Bellini in a location
Yes,
where
it
you
was
did
a
not.
great surprise. I didn't think, and nobody was in the church looking at it either.
So I think to a degree, do you think in the other arts we're always trying to hope that they will have the power that the plastic arts have, where the articulation can be found in one and only one place?
Yeah. I think that recording has taken away a great deal from the live performance. I think Glenn Gould was full of it when he, and had too much influence in the 60s and 70s with, you know, the concert is over with.
Yes.
The concert has to be revived again because there is no other way of really experiencing that acoustical feeling, you know, which is just is equal as the legato you talk about that the orchestra can achieve compared to the articulation. It was one of the great glories of the piano that it is an articulate instrument. That's why we still love the harpsichord too.
Yes. Now here's where I'm going to sound really like an arrogant SOB, but we all hear people when they're interviewed about their piano playing say as if they've never ever heard anyone else say this before, and yet I don't think they ever think it through, because in a way I think we're talking about there's a certain degree of falsehood about it, how we have to fight to make the piano sound legato, where I think its virtue,
Well,
again,
there is no legato.
right, and I think its virtue perhaps is in this articulateness.
Yes, of course it is.
It's in the snap of it.
Yes, you want. I'm listening to the G minor ballade in different performances on YouTube. The Rubinstein, it's just, you know, nothing to it really, and you know, he's a great technique, but not quite enough.
Not enough
Not enough
articulation.
finger articulation. All of a sudden you hear Horowitz. Oh my God, the articulation in passages that I'm struggling with for years, because you have to be a virtuoso to get that, and it's only through articulation. Now what happens is that I hear Moiseyevich, articulations in different places because he's a virtuoso. He has so much, enough technique that he's able to play the piano properly within the scope of the pedal, making so many colors anyway. And then you go to Hoffman, better than all of them in the articulation. Every area of this performance is unbelievable. Now afterwards I go lie down. I've been working on the G minor ballade. I find that what I do with it technically, which is adequate for a good pianist, is a pipsqueak compared to even Samson Francois, who, the French pianist and student of Cortot, is absolutely incredible in articulates. What happens is I'm listening, and here's a form that very few people that don't play the piano, or at least cannot ever play the G minor ballade, how many people in the world can do that? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a great man because I can do it. Every pianist should be able to do it. You have to aspire to it. But here I am, lying in bed. My fingers are now in my mind, and I'm thinking, let's do the G minor ballade. Let me go through it and try to hear what I loved very much. One measure in Moiseyevich, a certain double note thing, and then Horowitz in an articulation in the little waltz theme that is syncopated with the left hand in 6/8 time. Oh, I forgot that Horowitz is a true virtuoso.
Mm-hmm.
I had more fit technique than anyone in certain ways, especially when in needed articulation, like in Scarlatti or in certain passages in the G minor ballade. Well, what fun I had going in my mind, listening to the fact that Hoffman was just not loud and declamatory in the opening.
Mm-hmm.
Then Hoffman plays the moderato, which comes back 3 times in different, guises. And Hoffman gets a strange, which I never heard before. I never heard it, and I've not been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But a strange kind of melancholy in it. It's extraordinary. So I am now playing through the 3 performances I heard in my mind and my fingers, unless there's a lapse where I didn't know the piece well enough that I can't hear it in my mind. But what a startling thing to sit back, lying down, and for 11 minutes, let's say it would take 2 minutes more or so to do, you going through at tempo the whole piece in your mind.
With a conflated image of those 3 performers?
Yes, where I remembered them, that they were spectacularly different or beautiful or melancholy or gay or whatever. I'm hearing all 3 of them in my recreation in my mind.
As if you're splicing sequential pieces together, or are you superimposing?
No, I'm superimposing, yes.
Meaning that to a degree you're creating a hybrid, even in the course of a measure, let's say between a Hoffman and a Horowitz.
Yes.
As if you could have them metamorphose, as if both of them were one man.
Yes. And notice that all 3 come from the golden age, or it was the last moment, so to speak.
Yes.
That's why they called it the last romantic. They didn't know why. It just comes from the last great moment of tradition. That word is gone. Musicians don't play with any kind of Hoffman, Moiseyevich, Cortot, Samson Francois. They're all better than all of the people today combined. I'm sorry. And afterwards, I also have a sadness. Why? I can't do what they can do. I cannot do it.
But that's a grand kind of sadness to be
Yes.
privileged to experience.
Yes, and it was privileged. It's privileged to be able to hear this from beginning to end, where here I am in my mind and in my hands. I am going through, I don't make any motions, I'm just there silently, but I'm hearing the G minor ballade from beginning to end. All of a sudden, the roar of the chords on the last page, I mean the scale passage.
Yes.
Samson does it, and by the way, there's not even one passage that anyone plays alike. They didn't have it in them because the tradition pushed them, it just pushed itself in from Anton Rubinstein. And when Rachmaninoff said, I remember every note he ever played, he wasn't joking. And that went into him and into his recording of the Now, why is that the best recording of the B-flat minor sonata in everyone's opinion? I said to Abby Simon once, I like very much your last movement of the B-flat minor sonata of Chopin, the little 1.5 minute unison. And he says to me, oh, David, mine is just a feeble imitation of Rachmaninoff.
Yes, I only know that quotation from having read it in one of your books.
Oh, really? Really? Well, that's a good one.
So would you then submit that Rachmaninoff, however, is only as great as he is because he's a master synthesizer of all the things he heard others
Oh, yes.
do?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And like Horowitz says to me, Rachmaninoff was crazy about the playing of Friedman. Well, of course, nobody can play anything like Friedman at his best. Just fantastic. It's fantastic. These people had something. What was, I'm trying to wonder and think, what was it in their environment, in their training, in their life, in their love life, in their, no, I don't know.
Well, you and I talk about this a lot, and it came up with the notion of you inspiring me to dive into Byron, and what we might call, for lack of a better phrase yet, men of color, or who can live lives that we say have color. And though, as we progress through the decades and centuries, we eliminate a lot of the behaviors that a lot of these men might undertake that cause great pain to people, that might be even considered nefarious behavior, and think we've made social progress by making people afraid to do anything like that again. However, at the same time, is more lost because we don't have... In fact, what is that wonderful quote that is in your new essay that is about to appear about Byron being, what, a terrible man to be near?
Mad, bad, and dangerous to know.
And dangerous to know. And yet, aren't we suffering from people that are dangerous to know, of that caliber?
Yeah, and she meant psychologically, of course.
Yes.
To her and to all the other women that, you know, would fall in love with him daily.
And I'm sure there was a price to that. But what I'm saying is, are we paying a greater price for the absence of those mad, bad men? And you're saying yes, because we don't hear it in the piano playing anymore. In fact,
God, no.
Who was the pianist, the pupil of Liszt, who here in New York was exonerated from a murder charge?
Arthur Friedheim.
Yes. And wouldn't we kind of say that comes from an era of color that we just would not imagine happening?
You know that Friedheim thought that Liszt was paranormal. You know, he touched the outer fringes of any kind of, I don't know what to say. What's the word again? I have a quote in my book about it. He was not really anything but a god, as Huxley is talking about the few thousand true men that were born.
But you think he genuinely felt that Liszt was a kind of almost angel manifestation?
Yes. Friedheim said he had nothing to do with the human race as we knew it. That he'd look out at and you know he was seeing something else, something different and deeper.
Well, then maybe that accounts for what we were talking about earlier. How could a man who could be of such service to his peers endure such ingratitude from those peers?
He endured it. I don't know if it was his actual and true belief in Christianity, of which he certainly took Catholicism seriously, at least as we could understand it then. It was a very different world when religion was still a romantic concept, you know. I want to die, he said, like the martyrs and the saints. His dad, who must have been a very influential man in his life, we know that he died when this was, I think, 15 or 16, and he told him, you know, beware, my son, beware. Beware of what, Jack?
I believe he said, beware of women.
Beware of women. And did Liszt, like many people, man and woman, make the wrong choices?
Yes, that's a study unto itself.
Yes, a study of you know, I don't like books these days that are just so biographical that they're all cleaned up of any psychological thing coming from the author. They're not allowed to say that, my goodness, Liszt must have been a, you know, pretty sexy guy. You know.
And yet able to somehow not, I still come away with the sense that he doesn't abuse that power. That he's aware of it and lives a kind of fabled life because of it. But golly gee whiz, I still find him perhaps the greatest kind of role model that I always remind myself, if I'm going to keep to any kind of hero worship, I'll say, well, there was Liszt.
Absolutely. I mean, who lived a greater life? Not Byron. He didn't live long enough, really.
No, yes.
36 years is not enough for a man of that kind of energy and stupendous detail. Liszt has 6, 7, 8, 9 major personalities in him.
And yet he seems to be able to reconcile them.
Perfectly.
They don't seem to be in any way creating a conflicted inner man.
No. he's much less, I don't know that we could say he's not conflicted, but much less, in my opinion, than other people have ever even dreamt of. I mean, he's so fulfilled in each role. Don Juan, Abby List, Old Man List.
Yes.
I mean, he's not changing or just saying, now today, my Don Juan days are done, or today, my traveling virtuoso days are done after 12 years, or no longer do I need 360 cravats for my ego to shine in public. I just, I need now to go to my Catholic retreat, stay there for a long time. Now I have to come back and teach at Weimar. I mean, this is the greatest teacher probably that ever lived in any form, any profession. How could he have created all of these pianists, each one greater than what we have now? Oh, Friedheim was unbelievable. His opening recitals at the Carnegie Recital Hall, he was the first to ever play there. You have to read the programs to believe them, not including the Benediction to God in the Solitude, the Sonata, the Norma Fantasy, Hammerklavier. It's
all on one program.
All in three.
All in three, yes.
Balakirev's Islamé.
Yes.
Everything is there in 1891.
Yes. Do you think there's also something symptomatic in the patience of the audience that is different? What I mean, I never find the audience that satisfies me when I attend a concert, when I rarely attend a concert now, because I'm always, like a prude, scanning the signs of the impatience that I see displayed. I never see people at the moral, rigid attention that I would like to see at a concert.
One or two. And
Yes.
Horowitz agrees with you. He says, oh, they come out to see me, maybe to hear the piece occasionally. But they don't get much of it. Certainly they don't get the spiritual areas. Those are not his exact words, but pretty
Yes.
close. And audiences today, I'm amazed at the fine audience of my series, which will begin again September 30th, I believe, in New York City. I think those people are really listening to these young pianists, or, well, even when you played the Ives Sonata, there was no coughing there at all, no coughing in my series.
Well,
I'm the only one that coughs.
lots of credit, I think, also to the influence of the person who summons the group, and that's you.
I see. I just am fabulous, I think.
I think so. Well, you have that mark of Lisztian grace.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we've talked about Melville. Where as an artist and as a influencer is Emerson? The more I read, the more his name comes up.
Yes. To me, maybe, I guess, the influence of Emerson moved from the finished work to the source of his work, the idea of journal keeping, and the idea of infinite collecting of information. And we all know about the bad consequence of being a hoarder in a literal sense, but we all have that instinct, and of course the benign notion of looking for information that may be of use to us. I always loved citing that phrase he would say about indexing his journal, because eventually the Golden brothers join hands, and we don't see that in the course of our day. But it allows then one, if we're always metaphorically gathering information from all experience, ultimately to feel that there is no bad experience. Everything has the chance to be submitted to metaphorical interpretation.
Yes.
So it seems to me the cult that we experience now, everyone feeling that they need to therapeutically address what they think they have suffered, to me, I think is a great, great mistake, because I think what someone like an Emerson teaches, and again, mind you, he's a man who lost children, lost wives, brothers, as we've discussed, to the endless scourge of tuberculosis, which is a topic unto itself.
Oh, God.
And yet seems to always preach the notion that any man, if he's really honest with himself, has never suffered. And I think that comes from that process of collecting information and seeing whether or not we can always have the power to interpret it metaphorically. Because
Yes.
the great gift of being alive isn't that we're given the answer. I always say at home, sometimes when this question comes up, well, wouldn't one prefer God to give you the ultimate jigsaw puzzle versus a poster that has all of the pieces there? And even a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces is kind of grand, because that allows for that metaphorical leap across spaces. So to say the influence of Emerson on me is daily, even just in terms of conduct, from the means by which he produced his works.
And when you say that, and knowing you, I truly believe that he's with you daily.
Yes, and then of course this the finished work, so I think is absolutely, I don't know the word, one can almost read them, they almost defy Western civilization's obligation for left to right sequence.
Wow.
Because you've talked about the style being difficult, and it is, but it is so epigrammatic, and I don't think he did this by chance. And it almost then intimates some, though I find it very disappointing in the way it emerges in dodecaphonic music, where there's an intimation that Western art will now be just as much right to left as left to right, with the idea of retrograde, inversion, and all of these things that a Schoenberg would submit his rose to. But in Emerson, I think it finds its maturity. The notion that we almost become removed from sequence, which is another great moral teacher. That we all feel sometimes that because something has happened to us, therefore our perceptions of abstract principles, we have a right to feel that we've changed them. And yet someone who is free of that will say, well, that's all well and good for you because you've not suffered what I have. And yet, I think what Emerson's defiance of sequence teaches is that principles are outside experience and that they are immutable, notwithstanding what we are taught by chance. But that if we have things that come out of reason, and by reason I mean more than the 18th century notion of reason, as in the age of reason, but Coleridgean reason, which is inherited from the German Romantics, and thought to be the way Coleridge mistranslated Kant. When we draw from that notion of reason, which is that bit of the Venn diagram that overlaps with the mind of God, those ideas that we're born with and we know intuitively, they are there notwithstanding whatever happens to us. So I think Emerson articulates, even in his style, a moral kind of teaching, that he's not going to present it in a sequential way to say, hence I prove this point because I've lived from point A to point B. But I will grab these eternal verities out of the air, arrange them in such density that the work does make sense as a whole, but it collates these little tremendous bullets, one after another, that seem to have a place together. I think, I forget to whom we attribute this articulation, but someone said of Emerson's prose that it's like an army all officers, that there's only people giving orders in there, only people of ideas. There's no one submitting to the chaos of the chance of the battle. So Emerson, I think, is a great, great teacher beyond the substance of the work that we could discuss, which would go on forever, but in the manner, if one reads it, on how it influences even the conduct of one's day, to remove the notion that we are ever a victim to the idea of chance submission to things we can't control. Because I think it argues the style that we are completely in control of the principles that we always know to be true inside if we don't live lives that grant embitterment to chance experience.
He was the personification of saving the individual in...
Yes, as he said, all of his work just amounted to one thing, the infinitude of the private man. And
The private man.
And
Where
do
is
we
that
need?
private man going?
Well, that's
oh
why
my
it's
God.
such an imperative now to have people who believe that. We have people who think that they're fighting collectivism with their tattoos or their, and yet these are just displays of infinite collectivist activities. Very, 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 very hard to find a true renegade, someone who's really standing off on their own.
Well, the society has made us so terrified. Artistically, morally,
Yes.
sexually,
Yeah.
everything.
Yes.
And we have, these categories for everything.
Yes. the naming of things without discipline is a terrible tragedy.
That label.
Yes. And yet in Emerson's journal, he talks about that as being one of the prime things of the joy of journal keeping. When one is seized to make an entry, that oftentimes it's the naming of the entry so that it has a place in the index that will discover its meaning. And oftentimes we know from the scholarship of Emerson that when he would give an index heading to something, it would sometimes have to be as long, because of the subtlety of the idea, as long as a sentence. And sometimes then the index heading sentence becomes the sentence he uses in the text. So there's always these wonderful steps of removal from left to right sequence, from chance, always fighting back to this sense of the eternal verity, and then putting them in this prose that I think is unbelievably grand, and golly, it's there for anyone to read.
Your profundity in and eloquence in speaking about this mastermind is really inspiring. And you talk of him, as a difficult item to, you have to study this man's work and read him because what you're saying puts him on a very high level of art.
Yes. And I have great faith in it. We were talking about reading and readers. Another thing, I've read it so many times that sometimes I feel I can paraphrase great passages or great lengthy passages. Yet, his work seems to be all of one piece that sometimes, despite my own familiarity with it, I still can't tell you from which essay a given phrase will come, because it's as if the whole body of work is addressing 1 to 2 to 3 great articulations of the eternal verities in different, small, always oscillating articulations of those things.
But was transcendental then.
He was, indeed.
One question before we wrap up.
Sure.
Number 14, and of course, we want them to all listen and subscribe to this. Is that right?
Yes, every like and presumably subscription hit of the button will continue to serve our cause.
We need our cause out there, because I don't know what they're thinking about, most of them. And I don't mean to be a snob or to be an elitist. These words, again, are so misused now. What more important than what I just said is, how in the hell does a list... He lived 75 years. What does Emerson live?
I believe he lives, let's see, he's born in 1803. I think it's 1882.
Yeah.
So he makes 79, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he has hard last years, right?
I guess he has what we would now call a kind of dementia, or maybe even Alzheimer's, which, again, what a mystery to besiege someone of such mind to fade into a twilight.
Why?
Doesn't seem to affect his good humor, however. He even finds metaphorical ways to wrestle with forgetfulness.
Maybe it's another kind of thing that we don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, again, a Superman, not not an average artist even of the highest sensibility. As you know, in the prelude, Wordsworth talks about what the poet is. Oh my goodness! I mean, he would be jeered today. I mean, he tells you that the poet ranks higher than the average person in all ways, and he gives you the ways.
Yes.
How did they do it you've got to have a long life to be able to be Liszt or Emerson. How did they fill their days? What was a day like? That's what I would like to be able to see them get up and maneuver, just watch them.
And yet, do you agree that they seem to lead lives of color again,
yes,
or richness,
yes.
where there seemed to be time for leisure and immense recollections of people passing through their lives? It's amazing that we've come now to pair Liszt and Emerson in this conversation, because I've always felt that a tremendous parallel lives book might be written where they, of course, could be addressed as in the outline of their lives, living a kind of crab canon. You remember the idea of the crab canon?
Sure.
And because, of course, Emerson begins as a man of the cloth and then ends up as a performer, in a sense, in the Lyceum. And Liszt, of course, the ultimate reversal, begins his life as a performer and wishes to be an abbé. And somehow, yet, they both don't betray, as you said, either parts of those personalities. They seem to retain an occupation of everything they've been without ever having to leave those things permanently behind.
The great man must be studied further,
Yes.
meaning the great men of our past. We don't really know if Lucien Freud's work is really going to last.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to think that it's, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't care.
Okay.
When I don't care,
Yes.
I know I don't need to study him.
Well, see, that self-trust is absolutely a great thing that a great reader needs. And that's what I think you were much advanced on me. I still suffer from a
Oh, please.
very childlike sense of that elementary school marm in my head saying, no, finish that book. And, but you've been a great influence on me.
Oh, what school has done to people. Oh, come on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first of all, I would stop giving any money to any school. Stop it.
Yes.
Get them out. Get them out and build a new city. By 10 years old, they should be working on a new city in Wyoming or Utah or
Yes.
do something, because this school's a prison for these poor kids.
Mm-hmm.
The teachers don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, a Diet Coke education on the Superman comics.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm being too hard, but I want to say,
I would think, yes. Well, I was going to say too generous that they're even studying Superman comic books.
I know you love them.
Okay. The old one.
Strange visitor.
From another planet.
From another
to
planet.
Powers far beyond those of mortal men.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean the Superman comics of another time.
Everything is of another time,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes. it
What
is.
exactly are we doing here? You think 30 people are watching us?
Well, maybe. I had a friend who said to me that perhaps we're putting a bit too much worry in the particular medium at the moment, that if we had, like, say, a Margaret Fuller, who was in Emerson's circle, and she, like people like Bronson Alcott, would give discussions, and we would not bat an eye if we heard that 30 people attended one of those. So we would think, oh, that
That's
was
true. That's true. We think in millions now. Everyone
Yes.
everyone has to watch us.
Yes.
Well, they're not going to understand anything that you said about Emerson anyway. But I'm glad you said it.
Well, thank you, David. So we'll see. So, God willing, we will return.
Well, as I say in my radio program, and as we said last week,
Yes.
I try never to say it the same way. This is David Duvall.
And this is Jack Cole.
Thank you for listening.